Hi, I'm Bob. In my company, I'm the person responsible for the initial setup of the SAP S/4HANA cloud system with regards to financial accounting in central business configuration. That is, I need to make various basic settings that'll apply to all financial activities done in the system in what we refer to as the scoping and organizational structure phase, or the scoping phase to keep it a little shorter. These settings are very important, and once I finalize this phase, they can't be changed later. Among other things, I need to choose the currencies that my company is going to use. I need to choose the accounting standards that we need for our financial statements, and, last but not least, I need to set the number of ledgers in which we're going to record our financial transactions. These settings depend on a number of things, such as whether we do our business nationally or internationally. In this video, I'll show you how I select the ledgers that my company needs. Let me just say a couple of general words about ledgers first. This might make it easier to make the decision. The ledger is one of the core entities in the system, and it combines many critical settings for accounting. A standard ledger has the following key characteristics. It's the central repository for accounting data, and it's based on the Universal Journal. It's the entity that records all business transactions and includes the corresponding general ledger accounts. It contains other critical settings that are relevant for a company code using this ledger, like currencies and accounting principles. And you can use additional standard ledgers for parallel accounting. That is, if you need to do your financial reporting according to different sets of accounting principles, such as local accounting principles and corporate accounting principles, like IFRS. Now, I'll create a project to see which options I have in terms of ledger combinations. I'll log into Central Business Configuration and create a new project with the project type Implementation. Now I'm in the scope and organizational structure phase. The first step is define scope. This is for very basic settings. This is where I have to select the countries my company does its business in. In our case, this is the US and Germany. Then I'll save my selection. If my company only needed one accounting principle, that being our local accounting standard, I wouldn't need to change anything, as the standard ledger is included by default in the Enterprise Management bundle. But because my company needs more than one ledger to be able to use additional accounting standards, I choose Add under Enterprise Management. Then I scroll to Finance and see the three relevant scenarios. Scenario J58, which as I mentioned is there by default, contains the local accounting standard that's always there and would be sufficient if my company were only operating in one country. This ledger is called Ledger 0L. Then there's Scenario 1GA, which is used when the corporate accounting principle needs to be IFRS. The ledger contained in this scenario is called 2L. Then the third scenario I see here is 2VA, which is when the corporate accounting standard needs to be US GAAP. This ledger is called 3L. Now, neither 2L nor 3L are included in the standard scope. They have to be selected manually based on your needs. For my company, which does business in the US and Germany, we need all three accounting principles, so I select both scenarios in addition to the default J58. So I'll select 1GA and 2VA by clicking Add. Once I've done this, I can see a list of all of my selected scenarios. I click My Selected Scope in the upper right area of the screen. I scroll down to Finance, and here they are, J58, 1GA, and 2VA. Then I'll click Back to Scoping to get back to the selection screen. If I make a mistake and accidentally click the wrong scenario, I can reverse this by clicking Remove. But a note on that. For any scenario that's contained in the default scope, the Remove button is inactive, so I couldn't remove J58. If I forget to select these two additional scenarios, 1GA and 2VA, and then try to complete the activity, the system shows me a message asking whether I really want to set up the system with only one ledger, meaning that I would always only be able to use one accounting standard for my financial statements. I don't want to have just one ledger, so I can go back and add the two needed scenarios to my scope. Once I've done that, I click on Complete Activity in the upper right area of the screen. Again, the system asks whether I'm sure that I need all three scenarios and lists the impacts on whether I really do. As I've mentioned a couple of times, it's important to think this through because there's no way back once I've completed the scoping phase. That is, I really need to know my company's business requirements well. If I know that my company will add a new country for its business in the future, it could make sense to activate the relevant scenario already. On the other hand, if I activate all 3 ledger scenarios and don't need all of them, even in the future, I have to then run certain closing steps for each individual ledger on a regular basis, and thus risk creating data redundancies and burden system performance for something we don't actually need. In our case, we know we need all 3, so I'll go ahead and click OK to confirm the warning message. The next thing I have to do is complete the scoping phase and confirm this milestone. For this, I have to define a deployment target first. Now I set it to completed by clicking on More. Now I can select Complete in the drop-down that's shown. And in the list, it shows under Completed. So, we've got something else left under Open, and that's the Confirm Scoping is Completed milestone. I need to keep in mind that when this is done, I can't change my scenario selections anymore. So I open the dialog and click Confirm Milestone. And once I do, the system compiles all of the selected scenarios. When it's done, this milestone appears under Completed. And there it is. I've made the initial settings that were necessary for my company doing business in the United States and Germany. I've selected the ledgers and the accounting principles that we need for our business, and I've completed all of the necessary scoping milestones in our central business configuration. Why don't you have a try?